Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and in today's video we're going to be focusing on crossing and finishing. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be working on a play making the overlap and run to then deliver into the box. But before we get into it, let's have a look how many players we're working with this week and the equipment that we'll be using. Now, in terms of players this week, we're going to have 11 outfield players plus a goalkeeper, but you can adapt this for more and less players as well. So obviously in certain areas you can just add players into different areas. You can start to add defenders in if you have more players as well. Obviously, so the attacker's got to try and get away from defenders. In terms of the equipment, we're going to be focusing on using balls, bibs and cones. Now, if you have poles or mannequins to use as well, that'd be really good. Okay. And then later on, when we move into a small-sided game, if you don't have small-sided goals, okay, just try and use some poles to mark out an area of a goal. Now, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, so from the goal line to where the strikers are here, okay, we're going to have 25 yards. And then this cone here is just going to be a couple of yards further back there. And then we're going to have 15 yards between these two players here. So you're around about 40 yards. Now, the striker's going to be in the width of the goal. So obviously a normal size goal is about 8 yards, okay. So we're going to have them 8 yards here, okay. And then these players here are going to be 12 yards either side there. So 12, 24, and then you're looking about 32. Then between these two players there, you can have 10 yards again. Okay, so that'll just be a little bit more tucked in. So it'll just be an extra 5 yards from the middle area here. And then we've got the space out wide for the players to move into. So how it's going to start, you're going to have two teams of 4, okay, focusing on crossing. These players focusing on attacking it. So, and again, you can swap those players over. This player is going to receive it, okay, and look to take the ball inside. As that happens, this player is looking to make the run on the overlap. And then this player is looking to drop to receive the ball, okay. So as this player touches it in and plays that pass into there, this player can either play first time, okay, or open out. This player is making that run on the outside. It gets set into space for them to move on to. As that player is moving onto the ball, we're focusing on our movement. So attacking the front and attacking the back post, okay, but we're not in there too early, okay. So as that player makes contact with the ball, we've still got space to move into to attack the ball and score. Now, once it's finished, okay, the strikers, just one of the strikers will swap over, okay, with the player waiting, okay, so they can just keep taking turns there. Then what will happen with the other players, the player who set it behind will come to be the player who first received it. The player who first receives it comes to the back of the queue, and the player who crosses it, okay, will go and be the setter in here. So then once we're finished, we will then go from the other side. So this player looks to receive it here, to touch inside the pitch. This player is making that run on the overlap. As this player receives that ball and then goes to set it, this is when we focus on our movements. So the ball's getting played into here. These players then look to spin off. So this player's going to go back post, this player's going to go front post. But we're not waiting for the ball in the box here now. We're in a position where we can still go and attack the ball. Okay, so use that acceleration, okay, to gain some momentum onto the ball to then finish first time. Then our teammate will look for them to stay alert. So if the keeper saves it, we can get in on the follow-up to score. Okay, because the second ball is in the box, okay? Make sure we're the first to react to the delivery. And again, these players will just keep moving up one each time to the back of the queue and then go from there. So it just keeps rotating each side. Then, like I say, after a set amount of time, you can look to swap players over, okay? And give different players different roles. And then if you have more players, you can add defenders in here. You can add maybe defenders in here as well to play around, just as like shadow defenders, okay? And if you even had, let's say, one more player, you could have 2 strikers in here and they're just swapping over all the time. And then the teams get so many goals, and how many goals they get obviously adds to a score, and then they can start competing against each other. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now focusing a little bit differently, so we're going to be doing some crossing and finishing whilst also doing some intricate play around the box, okay, so quick reactions, so different finishes. Now in terms of the setup, so from the goal line to where the strikers are here, 25 yards, and then 10 yards further back for our player in here, okay, and in the wide areas you can just use as much width as you can get really. So obviously if you have half a pitch you can have the players as wide as you can have it. If you have a little bit less, obviously just look to bring it in, and if you want to change it to a cutback you can even bring it a little bit more as well. Now the coach or coaches, if you have a couple of coaches, are going to be either side of the goal. They'll have a ball as well, okay. So how it'll start is that the player here will pass to their teammate who looks to pull out into here, okay, to receive it. They then set the ball in behind for their teammate to move on to, touch and finish. As soon as that's finished, this player looks to shift the ball out the feet, okay? These players look to adapt their movements to then react, to attack the cross and score. As soon as that's finished, these players look to clear the goal quickly. The coach looks to drive the ball into this player who's moved a little bit closer. They look to touch out their feet and finish. Now, what we want from the two strikers here is staying alive. So then if this ball gets parried into here, this player can react, looks to even set it to the teammate and score. Okay, so it's obviously focusing on finishing in the final third, then reacting to attack the cross, okay, and then reacting again, okay, to receive it and have a strike from distance whilst we're in the box, okay, so reacting to that. So it's realistic to a game because you have it sometimes where a cross can come in and let's say it gets cleared and then somebody has a shot and then the keeper saves it, it's blocked and we need players ready to react. So once the cross has gone in and let's say we've scored or missed or whatever, just move out for a second to allow that shot to come in, and as we see it, can we look to gamble? Okay, keeper might spill it, let's be the first one to get onto the ball and then finish. Then, once we've finished, the crosses are going to stay the same for now, you can swap them over if you want to. The three attackers will swap with one of the other three teams of attackers. Okay, this player here, this player there, these players come into here, this crosser gets ready, and then we do the same thing, but just going the opposite way. So now this player will receive the ball, set it into their teammate there, finish. Soon as they've finished, okay, so this player's going to be constantly on the move so they can react. As soon as they've finished, the crosser looks to get it out the feet, they look to swing the ball in, and then again we look to finish. And again we look to get on the seconds for that as well. As soon as that's finished, let's get out the way there so then this player can receive it, touch out the feet, and then have a strike at goal. And like we say, these players just ready to react just in case the ball misses. And then these three players will swap over with the other attacking team. Okay, so like we say, if you have more players here, you could have defenders involved where they might not get involved in a little passing sequence, but as soon as the passing sequence is finished, the defenders can come in to try and defend the cross and then defend the next phase of play as well. Okay, you can add more crosses in if you wanted to, as well if you have more players. So there's little alternatives in case you've got an extra couple of players and you want to fit them in to the session. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Now moving into part 3 of this week's session, we're now going to be focusing on a small-sided game. Now, the setup for this part of the session, so we're going to go with 40 yards of depth and 40 yards of width, okay, but you can look to increase or decrease that depending on your numbers that you have, okay, the age group that you're working with as well. Now, the depth from the goal line here to where the crosses are, just the crosses areas, is 25 yards. So we're going to be looking to cross from a little bit of a deeper position, okay, to deliver into the box. And then they'll have 15 yards. And they'll have 10 yards of width in each area. So then we'll have an extra 20 yards in the middle, okay. So the players just can't go into these zones, okay, can move anywhere else, just can't go into these zones. Now, you have a floater in the middle as well, okay, who's looking to obviously keep possession, looks to recycle the ball. So what we're trying to do, okay, is use the wide players to create chances to play through. So it can either be a cross or it can be a pass into wide areas or through the middle of the pitch to score. So we're focusing on crossing and finishing, okay? But that doesn't always have to be with ball into the box, okay? It can be the wide player, so as if it's the full-back, okay, receiving the ball and playing the ball in behind, playing the ball into the striker's feet, a winger spinning off and receiving it, okay, to then score. So the ball start, coach playing to one of the teams, okay, so let's say Red's here. Red player keeps it, use the floater, use the wide player looks to look up and play to the striker, okay, and then they look to keep the ball, work it to the other side. This player gets it out the feet and you see the wide player here making a run into the box, so they take a touch, whip a ball into the back stick for them to attack and try and score. Whatever happens there, so if it's a goal, red team gets it back. If they miss, the blue team will get the ball. Since they scored, the red team get it, so floater gets the ball, okay, bounces it to the winger plays full-back, okay, we look to spin off, can we create that space to receive the ball, okay, so then you've got your floater dropping in, you've got your midfielder here as well, they can go just keeping that ball moving there, comes into the full-back, so then this is what we're looking at here, so when the full-back gets it and takes a touch into space, the defence might drop, which means that we can then get a player moving in short, we would play that pass in there, then we can play a pass in behind, okay, to the wide player, okay, to receive and finish. So what we're trying to do is draw the defenders into an area where we can then look to either play through them or use the cross, okay? So progression can be that the wide players can move anywhere in here, okay? But for now we're having that deeper position so we can still have the wide players getting into space as well so they can cross. So it could be we move the ball across the pitch, full-back gets it, wide player comes out, receives it, and then they look to play one across the box for then a finish. And then when the blue team win it back, they look to do the exact same, okay? So, again, when we've got possession of the ball, utilising the space, okay? So we don't have to cramp it all in here. So think about where we can be in relation to the ball. So when the ball's in central areas, okay? Stress the pitch, but can we look to provide angles to try and receive it, okay? And use the fullbacks when the fullbacks have got it. Not all coming to show for the ball, we just want one player looking to drop in. The other players look to obviously retain our shape in terms of providing width, okay, providing options on the ball, and then being able to obviously attack across if it comes in. So again, take the defenders into areas where we want them to. Do we want them to drop in short, leaving that spacing behind to play a ball in? Do we want them to drop deep? Okay, so then we can have a player come in short, and then we've got space to be able to play that pass in behind for a player, and then we attack in there to then cross the ball in. So for the wide players, about staying alert. Okay, the attackers staying alert. So when the ball goes into a certain player, can we look to attack the box? Okay, so can we get ourselves in this area by either crossing the ball or playing intricate passes in and around the box and get the ball into that area to then score? We'll now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view over 900 session plans like this. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.